Hi guys, welcome to episode 3 of Community Table Cooking Techniques. In this episode, we're going to show you how to cook the perfect steak, one of my all-time favorite meals. We'll be showcasing some beautiful Wagyu beef from our friends at Rare Cuts. Today I'll be cooking up some of my favorite cuts, like the ribeye, tenderloin, and the tomahawk steak. I'll be showing you a few simple techniques that's gonna have you cooking a steak like a pro. These easy tips and tricks are gonna really come in handy for your next steak night. But first, let's go to the farm. It's always important to know where your meat comes from. Rare Cut sources their beef from a family-run cattle farm in Australia called Stanbroke Farms. Ethically raised, well-fed, and free-to-roam cattle produces some of the finest quality beef. It's what we chefs like to call happy cows. Now that we know a little bit about what makes these steaks so delicious, let's go ahead and get started. Here's a tip for you to cook your steak the way you like it, without using any special equipment. Give the left side of your palm a poke. If your steak feels like that, then it's still raw. Bring one finger down, and you have a rare steak. Next is medium rare, which is how I like to have my steak. After that, your steak is medium. Please don't cook your steak past medium. This is a no well done zone. Well done ruins the quality of the beef. Not good. Let's talk about seasoning. Here we have a fleur de sal, which is a French style flaky salt. Perfect for garnishing, or as we call finishing. Here's another finishing salt. This is a black salt and gives a really nice texture too. Today we're going to be seasoning with this, I guess you can say medium coarse sea salt. It's not too fine and it's not too large either. It's perfect for everyday use. This Himalayan salt works great too. Let's start with the ribeye. You see all these lines and zigzags on the top of your steak? This is a sign of high quality beef. It's called marbling. As you cook the steak, this is going to melt away and create a beautiful flavor all around. So my first tip for a ribeye is to give little cuts on the side. What this does is it helps keep the steak flat so it doesn't curl up on you when it's inside of the pan. This is good so you can get a more even sear. Next I'm going to season from the top to make sure I get the most surface area as possible. Seasoning from the top allows me to get an even distribution of salt all around. Gonna give it a little tap, make sure the salt is really stuck on there. In my preheated cast iron, I'm just gonna gently place the steak away from me in a forward motion so the oil doesn't spill back. I'm not gonna touch it or poke it or move it, I'm just gonna let it sear. I can tell from the color working its way from the bottom to the top that it's ready for a flip. This beautiful caramelization is called the Maillard reaction. Remember, no color, no flavor. This steak cooked for about 6 minutes, so I'm gonna let it rest for about 3 or 4 minutes. That's all. Nice, soft and fluffy baked potato on the side is the perfect dinner. Let's go ahead and cut into this to see what it looks like. This is how I like my steak. a nice blushing pink. Now it's time for the tenderloin, also known as a filet mignon. This tenderloin is a Wagyu plus 9 grade, which is one of the highest available qualities of Wagyu. Just gonna put a little bit of oil here to help my seasoning stick. The reason I do that is because I pat all my steaks dry before I sear them. Here I'm gonna add a little bit of black pepper along with my sea salt. I like to crack my black pepper fresh using this mortar and pestle. This is actually over 50 years old. It used to belong to my grandma. Here I'm just gonna gently press down to create a beautiful crust when it goes to sear. And don't worry if you have bigger specks of black pepper. They're gonna get all nice and toasty in your pan. So if you notice, I have enough oil to coat the bottom layer of my cast iron here. You don't want to deep fry your steak. You just want to make sure there's enough oil to give it a beautiful sear. And I'm not pushing down on my steak, I'm just gently giving it a little tap. So let's recap. Starting from the bottom up, and I'm just looking at my steak to see for any color changes. Now that my fillet is about a quarter of the way cooked in color, see from the bottom there? I'm just gonna go ahead and give it a flip. A little bit of garlic and rosemary just helps add some beautiful flavor into the steak. You don't want that drowning in the bottom of your pan. What you want to do is cook it off for a little bit and then throw it on top of your steak. This basting technique just helps to keep your steak juicy. Even though a fillet is a beautiful, luxurious cut of meat, it can actually dry out quite easily. So I just want to add some of these juices back on top to make sure it stays nice and moist. This cast iron is still full of flavor from the steak we cooked. So while my filet mignon is resting, I'm going to toss in some oyster mushrooms. As I stir around my mushrooms, I want to make sure I gently scrape off the bottom of the cast iron here. I want all of that beefiness and black pepper to go back into my mushrooms. That's all flavor, why waste it? Just gonna add a little bit more of that brown butter. Why not, right? I don't know about you, but I'm getting hungry. And it's time for dinner. Let's go ahead and cut into this. That's how I like my steak. Nice and pink on the inside with a great crust on the outside. Next we have a tomahawk steak, every carnivore's dream. This large slab of meat is usually cooked on an outdoor grill. But what a lot of people don't know is, with a few techniques and tips and tricks, you'll be able to cook this even better in your home kitchen, using a standard oven. So I'm gonna start just the same way I started the other steaks, with a little bit of oil and making sure I season properly. I'm gonna do this really slow, so I'm starting from the top here, and I'm making sure I catch as much surface area as possible. Because of the thickness of the steak, it's especially important to get enough salt all over. Not just top and bottom, but even on the sides. What I like to do is just massage a little bit of salt right into that fat cap. What happens when you cook it is, it renders the fat a lot easier, and instead of it being waste, it's actually really nice and juicy, and some people prefer more fat on a steak because of that reason. See if you caramelize things properly using the Maillard reaction. It becomes nice and edible instead of just tossing it on the side of your plate. I'm just gonna get a little bit more rosemary there and make sure it's dipped in oil so it doesn't burn in the oven. And I have a rack here with a little bit of garlic on the bottom to catch the juices. We're gonna do something called a reverse sear. So I'm just gonna go low and slow here and have it cook on the inside before I even try to get any color on the outside. So it's been about 45 minutes and I'm just gonna place my steak under the broiler. If you can see here, it's already started caramelizing a bit. And by the end it should look like this. Beautiful caramelization all over, including the fat. And I'm cooking this to a rare because that's how I like my tomahawk. And if you notice, it's going to be perfectly rare all over. Some nice little pieces of marbling and fat running throughout. It really doesn't get much better than this. And I'm just gonna finish this steak with some of that black lava salt. Rare Cuts offers a lot of side condiments with your steak, so I love getting mustards and pickles all at the same time. And there you have it. A tomahawk for two. But it's just gonna be me today. And I usually go in with my hands, but I'll use a fork for this video to make it seem like I'm a little polite. A good mustard always goes great with a steak. I hope you learned something in today's episode. A few simple techniques like learning how to season your steak, basting your steak, or how to treat different sizes or cuts of meat can really go a long way to make you a better cook. Follow these few simple steps and hopefully your next steak night is going to be even better. We'd like to thank our friends at Rare Cuts for providing us with such high quality beef for today's episode. Happy cooking, and thanks for watching.